I'm just going to give a really quick introduction to OpenCorporates, and then I'll just talk a little bit about companies and products, and some of the issues that we're aware of. Just in terms of, is this going to work? No, it won't, because this is falling out. This is actually fine, it's just that this bit about here. The screws aren't working on it, so it's working. I think it's doing it. Yeah. So I'll just give just a note for people who aren't familiar with OpenCorporates. I'll try and do a 7-minute run through. I got this down to 6 minutes 20 seconds in India last week. OpenCorporates, the largest open database of companies in the world. We've got a huge goal, but it's really simple, but it's really big as well. We want to have an entry in an open database for every single, an entry and a URI, but some information on every single company in the world. And by company, we mean legal entity. We don't mean Heinz or something. We mean all the companies that make up Heinz, all the companies that make all the legal entities that make up Goldman Sachs, for example. Because in a way, that's what ground truth is. In India, we're, a lot of discussions about ground truth. What's actually the situation happening? Not what is your first guess at it, or what the figures say, or things like that, but what's actually happening on the ground. And on the ground, as far as companies go, and someone that's run a fair number of companies, what happens is legally what the situation is, legally what the information in this jurisdiction here, whether it's who do you sue, in a sense. So I used to be a journalist. This is, and I was taught about the who, what, where, when, why, and maybe, who, what, when, where, how, and maybe why if you're doing a feature. So what does the corporate world really look like? We started off 3 years ago with three countries, 3 territories, 3.9 million companies. We've actually got, I think it's nearly 62 million now, but we're aiming for 100 million by the end of this year. This is a presentation I did in India. So 1.2 million Indian companies. We've got the Bangladeshi companies. We've got Pakistan companies as well. It's not just places like the UK. Allows you to, see also things like the directors. Again, this is sort of a slightly an Indian focus. This guy's a fairly powerful one of the elite in India. So it allows you to do essentially reverse lookups. How are people connected with the companies, not just which people are connected with the companies. Where do we get this information from? We get it from company registers. Now, actually, that's not trivial. The UK has open data on all the companies, but many places don't. So we've been creating an index with the World Bank about showing the barriers to doing this and using this as a tool to open them up. Many countries, even places like Spain or Brazil, you can't actually get hold of the statutory information. Does a company, to answer the question in Spain, does a company exist? I think costs you €8. You have to put your credit card in and just even find out if a company exists to do a company search. And we strongly believe, not just from a point of view of civil society or anti-corruption or those sorts of things, but just from a basis of good business, it's really important that this information, this statutory information, is open, freely available and openly licensed too. The information is available as data. One of the things that we think that open has actually has a structural advantage over closed. So we're in some respects maybe thought of as competing with the Dun & Bradstreets or the Bloombergs of this world. One of the things that those proprietary databases don't do is they don't give you any provenance. Now, I've been banging on about provenance for probably about 3 or 4 years, and people are starting to get it. In a sense, provenance is the most important thing. Who from a journalist point of view, who says, this company owns this company? Who says? Where did you get this information from? How do you know this? this product here, well, how was that made? Who was involved? Were there conflict minerals involved? This understanding of provenance. Another word for provenance is context. So if you go to somewhere like Dun & Bradstreet and you say, give me the parent company of this company, then they'll say, oh, it's this company. Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But they won't say where they got the information from and when they got it. They won't say, actually, do you know what? We did this based on a telephone call with someone 3 years ago, and they probably didn't know what they were talking about. Or from a statutory filing, 3 days ago. Or it was modeled on other model data. Now, we're dealing with some people in the financial industry, and that makes a big difference, whether it's current, whether it's fresh, whether it comes from an official source, whether it was a guess, essentially. And so, and they don't want to make that information available because, for two reasons. One is that the proprietary providers don't want you to basically say, oh, wait a minute, that's where they got it from. Well, we can get that. We won't even bother to use them. We'll just get it direct. And the other is that they don't want people to know that sometimes their information is really low quality. So we think open has got a structural benefit in that we can actually be transparent and clear about where we got the information from. And also that's got quality benefits as well, about people can see, wait a minute, we followed that link. We get probably around about 10 inquiries a day from people saying, the information is wrong on OpenCorporates, and in almost every single case it's wrong on the official register. And we tell them to go back and update the official register, or oh, you're not the director anymore. Well, you need to update Companies House and so on. So we think that there's real structural benefits in terms of doing that, and that's got an analog to all of this open work essentially. How are companies connected? This is absolutely, obviously, critical for things like products. A product is a really complicated thing. You take a bottle of Coke. What is a bottle of Coke? And the answer, as in so many of these things, is it depends. And so this is just a visualization we've done about the links between within Goldman Sachs. We have some limited corporate network data. One of the ones we have very good corporate network data on is the big US financial institutions. This is Goldman Sachs with mapped with a point for every entity that we know about in the country. The big one is the US. You can see the UK over there. This one at the bottom is the Cayman Islands. So you can see how important the Cayman Islands is to Goldman Sachs. Just below the Cayman Islands, the red thing down there, that's Mauritius. And then to the right, the blue one, about level with Cayman Islands, is actually India. And most of the Indian companies, interestingly, go via the Cayman Islands, but go via Mauritius and the Cayman Islands, because of the Mauritius is used for fund management a lot. But knowing these networks, understanding what it means. I mean, so look on a bottle of Coke. In the US, it's actually quite trendy to be drinking Mexican Coke these days, because Mexican Coke is made with cane sugar as opposed to corn syrup, fructose. And so, when you look at it, what will it say? It'll probably say something like, bottled by such and such a company under license from Coca-Cola. There's so much to do with this bottle. There's the contents. What is the content in it? It's different from the contents of the UK. The bottle, where was the bottle produced? The company that produced this, is this affiliated to Coca-Cola or has it been licensed to it? Coca-Cola, what do we mean by Coca-Cola? You look at Coca-Cola, it's a whole load of things. Let's look at the trademark of Coca-Cola, the trademark of the bottle. Maybe that's actually not held by Coca-Cola Inc. of Delaware. Maybe that's actually held in a patent box company somewhere in Luxembourg or something like that. You actually have a really complex set of things. What can we do? What product recalls have there been to do with this sort of things? There is a huge amount of, which factory was it produced with? If there were, if it was produced in this factory, what were the labour citations that have been done there? What were the environmental violations that have been done there? So what you actually have in something as simple as a bottle of Coke is something that's actually incredibly complex. Now, you can get overwhelmed sometimes by the complexity, and sometimes you do. But I think that the point is that I don't think open product data is going to solve all of our problems. It's not going to make the world a better place tomorrow. But it is a requirement in order to being able to make more informed decisions and being able to understand the connections and the difficulty. Just a couple of other quick slides, and then I'll shut up. From a corporate point of view, why is this important? Corruption is incredibly prevalent in some parts of the world, and according to the World Bank, over 150 large-scale corruption cases they did, the majority used companies to hide the money trail. Look at things like, again, going back to products, looking at things like a Tesco lasagna or something, that went through, when you followed those supplier chains, the number of chains it went through, absolutely incredible. And those chains, because they're obfuscated, allow bad shit to happen, essentially, because it's difficult to actually follow them down the train. And one of the moves is actually towards companies opening up their supplier data, because they know it's actually very difficult for them to audit it, and they need the help of the community doing it. And regulation is how do you regulate food when it's going through that many different chains? Competition. If actually, how do you compete if it's impossible to understand who made this? How do we do this? What's going on? If you're an innovator and there's a big company and that big company has got huge numbers of network, pays zero tax, all this sort of stuff, very difficult. Corporate accountability. I kind of think understanding about the companies and who they are and who's behind them and how they're connected is just about good business. This is just a quick thing we did on Facebook. The reason Facebook is interesting, and actually this could have been an FMCG company. Many of the FMCG companies are as complicated, particularly these days with patent boxes and transfer pricing and so on. So this is what their statutory filing at the Securities and Exchange Commission says. It says they have 6 subsidiaries, most of which don't have Facebook in the name. So just by Googling them or searching on OpenCorporates, you wouldn't know that they were part of Facebook. You wouldn't guess. So we looked at a couple of the Irish ones and did some deep investigation of it as part of our testing of the crowdsourcing work that we're doing. And we found that rather than it being a simple Facebook owns these, it goes through this route. Multiple Cayman Islands companies and a company called Random Us Investments Limited, and so on. That's what the truth is. And I think what we want to that basic thing is, of course, most people at the end of the day, when they're going to Tesco's and buying their ready meal, don't want to have to, before they pick up their ready meal, look at this thing, read out huge amounts of data and huge amounts of printouts about that. I mean, of course, you could have tools to simplify that, to traffic light it or things like that. But the point is that should be available if and when we want it. In the same way that most of the people who are using the computers, the phones, and so on, don't care about the security protocols, about how this stuff is done, about whether the system they're working on has been hacked. But there are people who do, and that's really important. Is that that open source software allows you to look at those things, find the bugs. That's why the most secure systems are open source systems. Most secure web servers are open source web servers, because there are lots of people who actually have the ability, if they want to investigate. We should have the ability to, when we take a bottle of Coke, Tesco ready meal, to understand all the connections with that. And that will produce better quality merchandise, that will produce better quality products, that will produce ones that are less, I think, has the chance of allowing people to make the decisions, to make them less environmentally damaging, to avoid conflict minerals, to avoid companies that we wouldn't want to be involved in. That's it. Thanks.